All right, welcome back to Resilient Voices and Beyond. This is episode 25. If you heard the last episode, I messed up the actual episode. It was not 23, it was 24. So this is episode 25. So just thank you all for the continued support. Truly could not be doing this great work without you all. A lot of you guys have said encouraging words, just supported me throughout this, offered help in all these different ways, but also a special thanks to all the guests that I've had on here prior. Truly could not have done any of this, without you guys and being able to uplift your stories and your experience. So thank you all. If you so happen to have stumbled across this podcast and don't know who I am, my name is Michael D. Davis Thomas, aka MDDT Speaks. I spent approximately over 11 years in the Michigan child welfare system. I'm 25 now. I started advocating at age 15 in a residential facility and haven't stopped since. I have 10 years plus experience working in the child welfare arena, doing policy work statewide and nationally, working with programs, doing a little bit of social work, peer support, mentoring, working in juvenile corrections, and working in congregate care as a youth care worker, running programs, supervising, you name it. I've done a lot. I work 10 different jobs now, sit on 15 different boards, and I'm actively going to school, pursuing 2 doctorates and a master's. So that's me in a nutshell. Glad you're here, but this episode isn't about me. I just want to pass it over to my guests that I have on today for them to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mialissa, which can be a mouthful, so everybody calls me Mimi. I'm 21. I currently reside where I was in foster care at in San Diego, but I'm from Arizona. I was in foster care from 10 till 21, so an extended foster care. And then I'm 21 now, so I've been out of extended foster care for about a year. Been rough. The just like adjusting and trying to like figure it out and stuff. Yeah, I've been advocating, I think, for just about a little over a year and a half, not very long. My job before have nothing to do with it. Yeah, so I'm pretty new to this, but it's something that I know I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I was meant to do this.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it is a pleasure to have you on. I know we've been navigating because we had different time zones to get the perfect time and everything, but I'm excited for this episode. I've had a couple of conversations with you, and we have some shared experience, and I rave at the times where I can have conversation with people who understand, to the depths, so I've, kind of get a little bit of your story, through conversation, not the entirety, but what we're gonna do here is dive into who you are and how did this all begin for you, this journey of child welfare, foster care, whatever you call it, and life experience, So my first initial question is, when did your experience in care begin?
I was 10. I moved to San Diego. I'd lived here for about a year with my mom, my bio mom, and my stepdad. And I had just met my mom that same year. And after a year, I was placed in foster care. I was taken from school.
Okay. And what you were removed at school. So what did that look like? That course of being in care, in foster care, were you in foster homes, group homes, congregate care, juveniles? What did that look like?
Yeah, it looked like kind of all of the above. So when my first placement was at the emergency group home thing for a few months, and then they found me a foster mom, and then that was the last time I ever had a foster mom. Oh, excuse me. And she dropped me off at a group home one day. Never saw her again. And I'd only lived with her for a couple months. But then after that one group home, there was no going back. Once you kind of like stepped foot in a group home, there was no chance of being, especially because I was older. So there was definitely like no chance of being in a foster home after that. So I was in probably 10 different placements. I'd also been sent to LA to live in one placement, and I ended up getting on probation at 16. So probation had sent me to live in Virginia, and that was my last placement. But all group homes, all like level 14s and 12s, and in and out of juvenile hall from like, so the first time I was locked up, I was 13, and then I got off juvenile probation when I was 19. So.
Wow. So, if you don't mind me asking, I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper, because a couple things you said, kind of struck my ear a little bit. So you were removed at 10, went into the system to like a foster home. Emergency shelter. Sorry.
No, I was moved at 11. Sorry. So
Moved
I was
at
11.
11. Okay, so moved at 11, and the first placement was an emergency shelter, then a foster home. And then from there, it was kind of bouncing, from juvenile, to placement, and then your last placement was in Virginia. That's a lot. that is a lot, to think about, and that happened over a span, of time. So first I want to ask, because in the system we have, a weird way of making the kid a scapegoat for things. I want to ask, why juvenile, when you were considered into foster care? So why were you in juvenile at that time?
So it was actually a couple years after I was in care already.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 13, I ran away from my group home. I ran across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first interaction with cops as a foster kid. Not that I'd had these like super great ones beforehand, but it's different when you're a foster kid when you interact with cops in general. At least out here, like I don't know how the culture is in other places, but they're judge. They know who you are before they even meet you, kind of thing. They're just really judgmental and assume things. Yeah, that's another story for another time. But yeah, so I ended up getting like arrested, and then I was placed in juvenile hall for 2 or 3 weeks for resisting arrest at 13. And then I went back when I was 16. So I didn't get in trouble that whole time. Like I was like, I'm never gonna get in trouble again. Like, because one of the officers, when I was like getting released, was like, "See you soon, Castillo." And I was like, "What? No, you won't." And I wanted to prove her wrong so bad, because I was like, why would she say that about me? And I did go back, and it's because I was being a dumb kid. So I was, hanging out with the wrong crowd, and my dad had just went to prison again, and I don't know, wanted to be like dad or something. I was just being a dumb kid, and so I had got GTA charges and possession.
Yeah, okay. So I have to ask, because my background comes from juvenile. Started in juvenile, spent time in there, could have very well ended up in prison, and that could have been all she wrote, and me, all too well, that pipeline is kind of like a slip and slide. Once you own it, it's hard to get off, because you have those staff members in those places. They're like, "Oh, we'll see you next week." Like, soon as you get out, and you be like, "No, whatever, I'm not gonna be back there." But something, like, I don't know what it is, like something, and you end up going back. you
It's
know,
built like that.
and you beat yourself up because you're like, how did I end
Yeah.
up back here?
Yeah.
How? Yeah, no, and that was literally, you know, me at that age. My first time going into juvenile was age 11. And I was in and out of the juvenile system, you know, doing programs, boot camp, scare straight program, all these different things, you name it, to kind of combat things. But there was a deeper root, because I can't speak today, deeper rooted issue behind, you know, my behavior. And I was just speaking on my other podcast I released before this one is released, um, with Shenandoah, that behavior is language. And, you know, no one really sought out to really understand that in my, you know, past. I had got to a point where I was no longer tolerating things happening to me, and I was going to beat people to the punch, you know. So that's my little ramble, you know, just sharing that little piece, you know. So you've experienced a lot, you know. How has throughout this process, you know, because you're freshly, you know, aged out, how has throughout this time, you know, aging out, transitioning into, you know, just independent life, you know, as you know it, um, been, you know, what has been the shift, you know, as far as mental health versus then versus now and self-care?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great question. Thanks. So it's super huge. Like it's crazy because sorry. So my mental health wasn't always like, it's like I guess stable as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from like 9 to 17, I was suicidal. I had um when I was 17, I was put on a 5250, which is when you need to out here. I don't know about everywhere else, but out here it's when um, you're on a hold for 2 weeks or longer, and to get released, you have to have a judge approve it. You have to
Mm-hmm.
meet with this judge at the place, and then when you do get released, I didn't get released the first time I met with him. I was so mad. But he probably saved my life. So it was, yeah. But you have to sign a waiver like saying that you won't own a gun until you're 25. So I was like, I think so, yeah, so like 9 to 17, right? And so I hadn't planned really my future, because I was so set on not making it past 18
Mm-hmm.
at the time. And then some stuff went down, and I realized like I want to be alive. This isn't it, you know? So now that I'm here, way past where I thought I'd ever be, I'm kind of lost because I didn't know what I wanted out of life.
Mm-hmm.
I was homeless for a while in an abusive relationship. Um, and I was still on juvenile probation till I was 19, and I was on the run from probation. I had got off unsuccessfully. Like I was doing really bad up until like a year and a half ago. Um, so it's really crazy to see who I am now and what I'm doing now versus literally a year and a half ago. Um, so it's been a really rough transition. It's been beautiful because this is not what I expected, myself to do. Um, it's just definitely been a little lonely. Um, and yeah, I think that's it. Like just a learning process for sure, but definitely way more than I thought it would ever be as far as like how my life was going to turn out when I would be 21, because I'm about to be 22 next month. So, but yeah, it's been hard. But I guess I kind of figured it out. I still have a place to live, so yeah, learning as I go.
So you know, you dropped a couple gems there, you know, and I call them gems, you know, because of life circumstances. These are things when you get older, you'll look back, you know, that really happened, you know.
No, yeah.
Um, but you dropped a couple gems there, and you spoke about being on probation. You know, you spoke about like, if you don't mind me sharing, you
No,
know,
no.
like heading down the wrong path, rightfully so. You know, like unfortunately, you experienced some things, you know, and you didn't dive deep into, you know, what led into you going into care. But I can only, you know, understand that you experienced some things to which, you know, even the trauma of having the lack thereof of a parent, you know, due to incarceration or what have you, um, can do a lot of damage, you know, mentally, and not really understanding, or, you know, what have you, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't want to assume any thoughts, you know, but understandably, you know, just trying to figure out life. And
I
I
can
can go
dive,
ahead.
I'm sorry, I can dive a little deeper into why I was put into
Mhm.
care. I just didn't know like that was like a like what was
So
you know
is your episode. Go ahead. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, you know, that you're gonna be comfortable with this being out there, feel free.
okay, finish your thought though, because I know you were talking about, I just was gonna say like I could go like yeah, sorry.
um so I pretty much was just saying, you know, and I think I lost it, but I'm gonna try to catch it back. Um yeah, it's gone. It's all right.
Sorry.
No,
I think
no.
it was about probation maybe.
Oh, yes, yes. You know, and I was just gonna say, you know, I resonate with that, you know. Before I ended out my stint, you know, in the juvenile side, had to do intensive probation. And I'm a some people don't know because it's not always out there, and it's really hard to advocate on the criminal justice or juvenile sense because it doesn't get that much publication, you know. But I've done a lot of advocacy in the juvenile world, you know, hence my experience, because I'm a firm believer that, you know, things happen in which why juveniles do what they do, you know, in the sense of delinquency, you know. It's on our job to help provide them with the resources to find other outlets so they don't become a repeat offenders, you know, because we already know statistically, and also with data, you know, from understanding adolescent brains, you know, that these individuals, once they're put into an institution, they're more than likely going to continue to go down that path of institutions throughout the rest of their life, you know.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to stop that cycle has always been, it seemingly what it seems as though to us looking outside, like, you know, it's impossible. But for me, I'm a firm believer by approaching things from the same approach that you go when you approach foster youth, from a therapeutic standpoint, you know, to understanding why these people are doing the behavior, instead of stigmatizing and labeling. Like the thing that happened to both of us, where we finally leave, we do our time, we leave, a corrections officer, you know, or whichever they call them. So, oh, I see you again. You know, that should not happen. You
Yes.
know, and even because it's so small, like some people are like, oh, they just said, you know, those small things leaves imprints. You know,
Yeah.
and unconsciously, some of those things do affect actions and behaviors. You know, we think about as individuals, as young adults and what have you, that have experienced trauma, you know, you're in that stage of impulse brain. That's why it's so hard to sometimes come out of that, you know, fight or flight, that survival mode, that default, you know. But once you're out of it, that default was always waiting for the right moment to switch back on, you know. And a lot of people don't realize that that's something that sometimes people will battle with for the rest of their life, due to the extent of what they have endured, you know. So always battling, I can't afford to go back to default mode. I can't afford to, you know, slap this person. I can't afford to, you know, do the, you know, that and the third. And I'm a person, because, you know, I like to bring things back to real standpoint with my own self, you know. I had to understand in order to change my life and my thought process as far as using my hands and fighting and stuff like that, that it wasn't going to get nowhere, that I could fight in a better and healthier standpoint and get more things done. If I put my hands, I'm only becoming another cliche, another statistic, as far as being a black male, that everyone's already counting me out. So I couldn't afford to count myself out. So that's all I was going to essentially say. But if you feel comfortable, help us understand a little bit more about your individual story and why you ended up in care.
Yeah. So I gosh. So since day one, as long as I can remember, I was uh separate, like different from the family, I guess. I wasn't treated like everybody else was. Um, Maybe it was because I had a different mom or something. But I wasn't like we would go to like birthday parties and like I wasn't allowed to like hang out with anybody. They'd stick me in a room. Um, yeah, and so I'm sorry. So when I was 2, I was living with my mom until I was 2, and then I guess we were homeless or something. So my dad, who was like um, gangbanger in Arizona, he was like a millionaire, and that's like a lot of money out there. In California, it's not. Um, but anyway, so he was like on drugs and like doing all kinds of crazy things. But he came and took me from my mom, which I guess in his head, like he's my savior. But he was really physically abusive, and verbally and emotionally. But what stuck with me the most from when I was younger was the like, physical abuse. Um, he ended up going to prison when I was 5, and then would be in for the next 9, 10 years. And I'm sorry, I think he was like 10 or 11, a long time. And then I went to go live with my grandparents, um, and I just was never wanted by anybody. So um, my stepmoms didn't want me. I never knew my mom, not until later. And my grandparents like made it very obvious, like I wasn't wanted. Um, so not that they neglected me, like in the sense that they didn't feed me or whatever, but they just like bare minimum. And I was left in my head with no mom, who like wasn't looking for her and like just all these issues, and I was like always a thinker, I guess. And I was always alone. So, at a very young age, by 9, I was the first time I was put in a mental hospital because I started talking about killing myself already. Um, so so I was 9, and then I'm about to be 10, and it was right after I got out of the mental hospital, and my grandparents decided they were going to get divorced and that neither of them wanted me. So they would send me off to go live with my mom, but I had to meet her first. So I met her. She seemed great. She's a liar. Um, and then like a week later, they sent me out here to live with my mom, and my stepdad was molesting me, and I I told my teacher, that was my 5th grade teacher, Miss Liddick. I don't know, yeah, she was cool. But I didn't know that she was a mandatory like reporter or whatever they're called.
Mm-hmm.
So when she said she was gonna have to like tell somebody, I like freaked out. I was mad. I was falling already because I thought he was gonna like kill all of us. I was like, we're all gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
So from that day, that was May 26, 2012. I've been in foster care. My mom said I was a liar, and I made it up and hasn't spoke to me since then. She blocked me on Facebook. Um, so, and she was never really nice. She was always abusive. She used to call me fat and ugly and say nobody was ever going to love me and I'd never get a boyfriend and all these great things that moms say. So, it's not funny, but I'm just like trying not to. cry or whatever. But
No, it, it's a trauma response.
yeah.
I call it, it's a trauma response. When you've gone through stuff, it just you either laugh or you cry, sometimes. Thank you for sharing that, and opening up and being vulnerable. I truly appreciate that. Wow. So understanding that background, I want to go back towards the journey that you've had in the course of your time in I don't know, the California child welfare system.
Yeah.
We go just group it all together, the California child welfare system, child welfare and juvenile system. So I kind of want to get an understanding of your thought process in these times, and I'm hoping that by you sharing and being open and vulnerable about these times to whatever extent you're comfortable with, it may help somebody else.
Yeah.
Navigating into the system, and you started hanging out with the wrong people, doing the wrong stuff. How did that start, and how did you walk away from that? Or when did you know to walk away from that?
Okay, so I should also mention, so the stuff that happened to me, like when I was younger and like all of that, it was not, I'm not saying like it wasn't bad, like it didn't affect me, because it did.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know like how to like explain. So like I used to like think my life sucked and like boohoo me kind of thing. Like my life was just horrible because I was a foster kid and because nobody loved me, nobody wanted me, right? And I was I couldn't see what I had when I had it at the age, because I was a part of this boxing gym that was like a family to me that I live across the street from right now, and I go see them like every week. So yeah. So anyways, when I was 17, I was homeless and I was on drugs, and just kind of like so I had got kidnapped while I was homeless, and the people had me for a while. Not a while, sorry, it was like 4 days, and like movies kind of stuff, like only stuff that happens in movies. So they're in prison, and I'm working on healing from it now because that was pretty recent, not recent, but like it was awful. Like it was probably like the most horrifying thing I've ever. I didn't even know people did shit like that. And it's just it's a long story, but there was like a baby there too. She was 4 or 3, and it was their daughter, and it was like a really messed up situation. And I'm bringing that up because after that happened, after I got away, I went to the police. I turned myself in because I was on the run for probation. So I had to turn myself in to like be able to tell the police about what happened. And what's it called? They'd almost killed me, and I remember like thinking like I'm alone and I'm about to die, and nobody knows where I'm at, and nobody's gonna know how it happened, and I can't believe this is how I'm gonna go out. And as I got older, I realized that situation, as awful and as scary as it was, kind of saved my life because I'd been suicidal that whole time. So even though I know like these things like that I went through when I was younger were bad, they weren't as bad as what happened when I was 17. And I'm not saying that they were like my feelings for whatever happened was like invalid, but it put a lot of shit into put a lot of stuff into perspective. Because I didn't realize how good I had it until I didn't have it, like an option or a choice. Um, sorry. So to bring it like all the way back to your question, um, like, sorry, what was your question?
So my question was, and then it is perfectly fine. No need to say sorry. Because I realize as you're sharing this, you're also recollecting and put together to build this timeline, so no need to, apologize. Um, my question was, I know you mentioned that, at some point you strayed and got connected in the wrong group. You mentioned being on drugs, and navigating, more so probably being in that survival mode, you know. How were you able to step out of that enough? Because I know you're still in the process of healing and recovery, you know. How are you able to step out of that enough and pursue a different route and pathway for yourself? And if you don't mind sharing, navigating that, what led you down that road? Was it just circumstance, situation, or what?
Yeah. Okay. So you, okay. So I guess, I don't know. I guess I had always knew like I was going to do whatever I could to like die. So if I couldn't directly kill myself, then I would do everything else to get there, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, like I wasn't gonna like hang myself, but I wasn't gonna like look both ways when crossing the street.
Mhm.
Just like the most destructive like thing that I could think of when I was that age. Like I said, I was seriously, seriously had some mental issues, and I never talked about it because I'd been alone my entire life,
Mhm.
and we're Mexican, and you don't talk about things when you're Mexican. Um, at least in our like, I think it's pretty common in our culture out here. I don't know everywhere else, or maybe it's just my family, but it's not. It's not. But yeah. Anyway, so um, I guess I had gotten down that road because I wasn't expecting to make it this far. So when I was, already in it, I was like, this is what I knew was gonna happen. This is what I wanted. I'm cool with it. Um, that was the goal, like to mess up like that, because of how, I needed some serious kinds of therapy. Um, and so yeah, I guess because I wanted to. And then what brought me to where I'm at is um, the fact that what happened when I was 17 was still eating me alive up until recently. um I can't, like, I couldn't even, I still can't talk about it, like details, never, not never, but like gonna be hard. um
Mhm.
but I guess trying to get over that has been, I've met a lot of people who have experienced really similar situations, and I realized that sharing that I went through something like that too, something very similar to quite a few other people, has been healing for all of us. And I guess just realizing that I'm not alone was kind of huge for me. And then at the time of me deciding that I was going to heal from that and probably help others heal too, I found CYC, and they just like flipped my whole life upside down. Um, like I said, I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship. Um, I had just gotten out of homelessness after a couple years. I was no longer on probation. Um, so I was kind of like clean slate. And CYC comes along, sorry, California Youth Connection comes along, and they believe in me, and they, want me to do things, and they they're challenging me and wanting me to grow and completely see somebody in me that I never thought possible. And I guess like it kind of happened on accident. Like it wasn't the plan. This was never the plan, to like get my stuff together. But when I found TYC, I was still using, and I was still hanging out with some of those people. And then I just stopped because I found something worth fighting for. I found people who believed in me when I didn't believe in me at all. So I guess that's how that happened too. It was an accident.
Wow. Uh, I'm just, processing, as you're sharing about your journey, and all that you've been through. I'm one to, say no trauma is bigger than the next, because that helps us process it, that helps us keep things at an even keel. But sometimes our brain,
It's hard not to. I guess.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes our brain, it just like, what, and as I'm listening, I'm hearing, if you don't mind me saying, I'm hearing you share, well, what I went through as a kid, nothing. And then when I went through this, like that,
Yeah.
but what I get from the outside in is, everything that you've been through have led to a pivotal moment when you got connected with CUIC, and some more stuff you're going to touch on, to your advocacy, and stepping into that purpose, and it's kind of a little bit different because where I'm 25, you're 21, so you kind of just transitioning into that new round, but you started it, you're transitioning into that new round. But I think it's so important because your story is so unique. It's so important to be real and authentic about these issues, because one thing you said to me really stuck with me, is the fact that when you got connected with a resource, you still was connected with other people and using, but something about being connected and finding connectivity within that network just deterred you away from that pathway. And for me, being a person that has, been going down the road, and so many people just like, Michael, you just gonna be another person in prison, or you gonna do all this other stuff. Those people, that them naysayers, it's something about what you just said in that moment that struck with me, because as I try to get people and I do all this peer support, and I tell them like, hey, just come as you are. I'm not asking for you to be perfect. I'm not asking for you to what have you. Well, even with this podcast, I'm not asking for everybody to be here, have $5 million, be successful authors and stuff like that. It's really important to have people like yourself on here, because no matter where you come from, your voice still matters. But also, a lot of people think that they have to be perfectly okay to ask for help. They have to be perfectly okay to step into the resource center, and you never know like what come out of it. I know your story is unique to you, and something happened or switched over where you just stopped using or what have you. And I know that may be different for somebody else. So in no way am I trying to compare to anyone else's story out there. But I'm just saying, like, what if all the people out there who have been listening to these people say all these negative things took a risk, took a chance to go be in that space of love, family, connectivity with people who have shared experiences, as you are.
Yeah.
What change would come out of that, and I'm a person, I'm that crazy person that thinks about transformative change like that. Like you ain't gotta be perfect, you ain't gotta be this, that, and the third, but I just want you to show up. We don't know what's gonna come out of it. If you just show up, I can help you, I can connect you to some stuff, you
Yeah.
know It may not be from our first conversation that some stuff click. It may not be from our second conversation that some things click. It may not be from our third. It may not even be me. Why you know me in your life in this season. It may be simply 40 years old, 40 years old. I hope it ain't 40 years. Lord knows. I really hope it ain't. But a couple years later, Michael said something to me, and then he took me to this one place, and it really stuck with me, because that was me. I had a lot of stuff in the juvenile. People said some stuff that was positive to me. It really didn't align until now I'm in the foster care system. I'm faced with some more issues. That stuff started to come up. That stuff that people were saying started to connect, and I was able to, do like a crossword puzzle in my head. But that's just something I wanted to share. It was really significant to me that you shared that, and one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I know you're still processing all these different things
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But
I'm right in the middle of it.
I appreciate you being here and sharing, and being authentically you in your present self.
Yeah, of course. Always. I think one of my favorite things about myself has to be I don't know how to be anybody else, and I guess I was always scared to be me when I was younger, and that got old fast, and I'm tired. And I don't know, I guess I was always ashamed of things that I didn't need to be ashamed of that weren't my fault, but yeah.
I get that. You're 21 now. How old do you really feel, though?
It's to say like because I definitely feel years older than I am.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah, and been through lifetimes of stuff, and that's I can relate to that. So now, I want to kind of fast forward, I'm into life now, into all to the great works, that you're doing, advocacy with CYC and what have you, and your positions, your work, So talk to me a little bit about that and what all you do now.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I currently am a commissioner, as well as the policy and legislative committee member. And that's so I've been on the committee for about a year and a half now. Last year, all year,
Before you go forward, what does that mean to be a commissioner? Because this is a foreign, like we don't have that in my state.
Gotcha.
So if you help the audience understand, what does that mean? What is that title?
So yeah, okay. So they're different things. So the commissioner position is that you can be. It's different for a lot of different organizations. Depends on what kind of work you're doing. For this commission, we do like fundraising. We do kind of administrative stuff. It's more of like a learning experience for us, as well as we're a youth-led organization, and so we try to keep that in every aspect of the org. And I love this place. So we do what else do we do? We do we meet with the board of directors. We facilitate all of the meetings. We have the HR and hiring committee. So it's intense. It's a lot of work. It's definitely not a position I recommend doing and you don't know anything about CYC, because that's kind of where I came in as far as policy and leg goes. When I first found CYC, I didn't know what CYC was. The only side of the law that I knew anything about was from, the other side of the handcuff, so I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know, none of this, I was literally so blown away that I even got the position. I was like, y'all got the wrong person. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so yeah, I was super lost at first. But it's been huge. So did that kind of explain the commissioner position? It's a bunch of things.
Mhm.
And then policy and ledge is like, that's the advocacy thing. That's all the advocacy stuff that we do. So like last year, all year, I spent my whole life and every waking second thinking about AB 2417, which got passed. And that was my baby. That was my, like, I felt very connected to this bill because I was probably like, I am probably one of the only youth in CYC that has juvenile justice experience and willing to like advocate and tell my story about, if it makes sense. Because I know that there are other youth who are involved but just weren't ready yet. And I wasn't ready at all, but I just was like, somebody's got to do it, you know? And I wanted it to be authentic. And I felt like it was like I had to, not had to, but like, I felt like I've always felt like I owe CYC because they saved my life. They totally did. So yeah, so I still do advocacy, but we got AB 2417 passed. So this year I'm kind of hoping to step back because I'm also the chapter chair for San Diego County. And so I've been doing more chapter work like recently since AB 2417 passed. So that's just kind of like our chapter had died out. Our advocacy chapter, like in this county, had died out in 2018. And so I'm just working on building that network back up. It's been great. It's been a little disappointing, but I think that they all start off like that. Like the first couple meetings, only like 2 people came, but those are 2 people that I didn't have before. So
Mhm.
yeah. And then I also volunteer for um, an organization called Urban Surf for Kids, or Every Kid Swim, which is in Florida, here in Hawaii. And so this December, I'll be going to Hawaii for a week to be a camp counselor for like healing trauma through surfing for foster kids. So that's going to be interesting, fun. And it's actually, I think, going to be for next year. I think we're going to do it again, but for everybody, like not just girls in California. And then we'll be switching to boys soon. So like we'll have boys and girls going. Not at the same time though, because we tried that. It didn't not went that great. Yeah. So I was working for the county too for a while, but back in March I got diagnosed with respiratory failure. So a couple weeks ago I found out I have actually an insatiable lung disease. Basically the doctor's saying my body's attacking itself and they don't know why. And that they were just going to be continuing to do tests and stuff. But that I might need a lung transplant in the future. Which, you know, I just found out. So, you know, I haven't really been able to like completely face it, but I feel okay. And it's been getting in the way of actually being able to get like a second or like, yeah, like a second job. Because it's expensive as heck out here. But yeah, so I got really sick back in March, and I've been sick ever since. It's just like a breathing thing, not just, but like, you know. And yeah, so that's kind of been getting in the way of some of the things that I do. Like I was supposed to go to, sorry, I was supposed to go to, I think it was Sacramento to do the celebration with the DJJ youth about the AB 2417 being passed, which is the Youth Bill of Rights for incarcerated youth at the county level. Long story, but it was just a celebration, and I ended up being in the hospital a couple weeks ago, and just deciding it probably wasn't best for my health to be doing that, you know. Even though I'm going to be going to Hawaii, and it's not that smart either, but it's Hawaii.
Wow.
Sorry, mouthful.
No, it is okay. You're doing a lot of great work, you know, and when we speak about advocacy, it can be very selfless work, you
Mm.
know. Yeah, yeah, it can be very selfless work, and the journey can be, say, put this in the best. I'll say this the best. It can be um it can be torturous. I can say that. It can be, yeah, you get a few wins here and then so many losses, you know.
Once you get,
So
can always celebrate. People like you put all this work into it, and
mhm,
people don't realize how it's either re-traumatizing or how hard it is to like face trauma that you've never had to face before, or
mhm,
like the things that you literally put yourself through on a day-to-day basis, so that way you other kids don't have to go through that possibly, because that's only if this bill gets passed, that's only if this policy is implemented, that's only if you can get your chapter to like, you know what I mean, like get your county, hold your county accountable for these things or whatever, and you're literally risking all of yourself and putting all of this energy into work into something that might not happen. And I think that that's something that's really important to know, when you're first starting out in this, because when they told me to take care of myself when I first started, I didn't understand the depth of that and what they meant by that, like what it really meant. If that makes sense. Like
mhm,
there's like no other way, but like literally, like it, like don't forget that like you're here and you're a human, and that if your lungs are messed up, take a break, because this might not pass, and I
mhm,
got lucky. I got like we all got lucky with AB 2417 passing. Had that not passed, I don't know what I would have done, because I was really sick, like really, really sick. Um, and still trying to focus more on CYC than anything else, because I felt like I owed CYC my life. And I still feel that way. And they don't make me feel that way. But I'm telling you, I was at a bad place when they found me. But yeah,
mhm. So life isn't going to slow down.
no.
No, it's not going to slow down. So my next question, and then I have a few other questions after this, is how do you choose your recovery first in the essence of your trauma, but also, your health, you
Yeah.
know, um, because realistically, you know, um, you embarked on this journey with CYC 17, 18, you know, and, now you're 21, and self care.
My journey with CYC started a year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago. Thank you for correcting me. Year and a half ago. So this has been a fairly fresh journey, but you've seen a lot and endured a lot in this time. So what steps are you taking to ensure longevity in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, no sense of advocacy, because in the sense where I come from in the recovery realm, acceptance, understanding, awareness, forgiveness, and a couple other things you want to maybe add in there, but as the base values, those few things, and recovering from trauma that you have endured, in order to continue to thrive, not be successful, because we we tend to be um tend to put success and use it in a toxic positive way, because success comes off as it's linear, but it's really not, you know but using the word thriving, because thriving can simply be being in a place of safety, peace, and comfortability, you know um your needs being met, You
Mhm.
know, you may have some wants, but are your needs met? You know, and different things like that. And you can, measure thriving to whatever that means to you, and it's very unique to you. So, when I ask you this question about how are you going to embark on having longevity, you know, in this realm, because you just, found out about health issues, but also, still working on things that you endured in your past, and um, doing great work. What's your goals? What's your plan, with this?
Yeah. So as far as um like my health and healing goes and forgiving stuff. Um so my I the work that I do is what has been healing what I've been through.
Mhm.
If CYC had not found me, especially when they found me, had CYC never entered my life, first of all, I would not be here. I can guarantee you that.
Mhm.
Whether it be because of my lungs or because of my using or because, um, you know, you know, those thoughts come back to my head or something. Um, I have never thought I'd ever I never even thought about healing back when I, was using and like messing up. When I can't even there are no words to get anybody to understand like what it's like to be as alone as I have been my entire life, and then to come into CYC and and find this place on the planet that you belong, and your feet are like on the ground for once in your entire life, and there's these people here that actually everybody has good intentions, even though we might not all agree. Like, at least I know and I can trust that they all have the best intentions. And I've never found that anywhere else, and especially like not with foster kids, because let's be real, sometimes we're messed up. And like, I can't even, CYC has been my healing. And if I ever stopped working, or if I ever stopped doing anything with them, because I do see myself outgrowing them eventually, but I don't ever see myself stopping being a part of that community, because I need that. I literally didn't know that I needed it, but it's been the only thing that's ever been healing for me. After all the therapy, all the medication, even even boxing, and as long as I was doing that, nothing has been like what CYC has been for me. And I'm not saying that it would be that way for everybody else on the planet, or um, you know what I mean? Because everybody's different. But CYC saved my life. And when I say that, I mean that. Sorry.
Definitely,
Um,
definitely. I appreciate you sharing that, and I ask that question as a person who's been advocating for a long time, and not that it's my job, but I think it's important as advocates that as we grow, and get older, that we share the knowledge of taking care of yourself and ensuring that our advocates coming after us have a plan of action to take care of themselves, you know, of course. And, I can resonate with that as well, telling my story, sharing my story, being in the fight, of advocacy helped me navigate the hardest moments of my recovery. That didn't, I'm not going to say that did the all be the all for myself, because there's also some work that I had to do outside of advocacy, that involves me sitting with self and, talking with a spiritual advisor, talking with a professional, or really journaling and really getting to the nitty gritty. But a lot of that heavy lifting was done, in those moments, in those accomplishments, and throughout that process of that time. Um, so thank you for sharing that. I, want to uplift, a couple of things spoke about in prior conversations, with things happening within the system still today, and everything, which, can kind of be heavy for some people, to talk about these things. But I know this is something that you mentioned that you were passionate about uplifting today. So I'm gonna pass that on to you to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just kind of a little bit of background. I was like kind of losing like motivations to like why am I doing what I do? Um because it was, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I also
Mhm.
wasn't sharing the things that were going through my head when when I was going through stuff outside of CYC. I kept it outside of CYC because I felt like I had to. I found out, I know now that that's not the case, and I can share, and I can don't have to hold all this weight. But anyway, so at the time I was like just going through it, and I came across an article about um, a, a 4-year-old little boy named Andrew who had been beaten, tortured to death by his foster parents um, in Riverside. And I found out recently that his one of the foster parents, even though he did 20 years, he still killed a 4-year-old little boy. And these foster parents only had him for 60 days. And over a 60-day period, they were torturing him and they were beating him. Um, the foster mom kicked him in his private area so much so and so often that it was swollen when they found the kid. And they would make him eat his own poop. And I think that's all I can remember. But I mean, that like 4 years old, and no, for 60 days, like nobody noticed that this kid was. Where's your social worker at? Like, why is nobody checking in on this kid? And I think there was a policy that actually came out of this event. Excuse me. Because this was back in like 2001. So I'm pretty sure, I can't remember what policy it was, but something did happen to be put in place after that. But it was the fact that this child had to die for that policy to be put in place. And children are still dying, and children are dying in my county. 2 weeks ago, a woman was um, sentenced to prison for a felony child abuse because she was fabricating um, her foster child's sickness so she could get more money and so she could get medication. But in doing that, she was killing the kid because they had her on like feeding tubes and stuff. And she's a teenager now. And she was testifying against her foster mom in court last week with the BACA president. So I love BACA, by the way, the Bikers Against Child Abuse. So do you know what they are?
No.
Great. They're scary biker looking guys. They're a
Mhm.
big group, they drive on their bikes, and they go with kids when they go to testify against their abusers, to make them feel safer. Because they're like, we're here, we're going to protect you. Nobody's going to hurt you while we're here. So anyway, so I didn't even know we had a San Diego chapter until I read about that case. And it's crazy because this woman who was doing this to this child for years was voted San Diego's like foster mom of the year recently. So it was
Mm.
like, this stuff is happening right underneath our noses. She almost killed this child and convinced the doctor she was really sick. So just because she could, just because she wanted to, like that is, sorry, I'm getting all frustrated. That is
No, you're okay. You're perfectly fine, because there's a conversation that needs to be had. And I don't know all the ins and outs of what's happening, as far as these cases in different states, but I've come to pass with some of these different things. We've recently had a death, a lot of our death state of Michigan, has been in congregate care, but there has been a lot of maltreatment, and I'm finding as I'm still on the ground, like, I do a lot of this, macro work when it comes to child welfare, but I do a lot of micro work too, and being on the grounds, doing these peer on peer, sessions with individuals, and I'm seeing out of these adoptive and foster families, um, individuals who need professional mental help, taking care of individuals who have intense trauma needs. I've had a couple individuals, be placed with individuals who emotionally, mentally, and it shouldn't have been a foster parent, shouldn't have been an adoptive parent. And I don't know if it's the desperation in times, of not having enough homes, not having facilities that's willing to take people, because they can't restrain anymore. Like, I don't know what it is, but the answer cannot be putting a child in harm's way. The answer cannot be sending a child more and more importantly to a death sentence, because that's what is starting to be a trend, in our child welfare system. You're better off enduring your trauma from your bio parents or whoever than going into the system to getting help, because you're at risk of losing your life versus you got a chance out here. You got a chance, it's like a flip of a coin, you either gonna die or die there, like either way, and I'm not trying to make light of the circumstances, but in today's society, we are molding, and I don't even want to say we are molding, we have molded into this. Carelessness in congregate care, carelessness as far as who are licensed in an adoption and fostering. How do people make it to being awarded foster parent of the month with no check and balances and understanding that a person has been abused right under their nose? How are people able to continue to have homes after allegations have been brought up that have, been brought up by their own workers, because this has happened in my state. Your own workers bring up allegations, about things that are happening, and the allegation is found unsustained. This is a person who works for the state agency. Mm-hmm. So if I'm sharing that this has happened and what have you, I've had to make some reports, unfortunately, and I don't do them lightly because I understand both sides of the field, with the family and also the youth, perspectives. So with that, when I have to make a report, I've made three. And I'm sharing this, I've made 3 reports, and one report was a minor having sexual relations, and the foster parent being okay with it, with a adult boyfriend in the home that I happened to stumble across, picking up a client. Another, a foster parent, foster parent was allowing their minor with no license to use a vehicle, and then when it came to correcting or what have you, they would say the foster parents, the foster child stole the vehicle to save their own butt. Another foster parent doing cocaine, and falling asleep at the wheel, with the foster child in the car. I have a couple more, but these are just these are things that I've had to make allegations for, and believe it or not, each and every one of those reports have come back unsustained, and each and every time that happens, dude, it's scary, because as we know it, we're seeing these reports modern day that people are dying, people are losing their lives, and it's twofold to that. People are stuck in these abusive situations, and they're asking for help, and when they try to get help, they're made out to be, this liar or what have you. But also there's individuals who, I'm just going to endure it. You should never have to endure something in a foster home because you feel as though that there's no other places out there. I know a couple of youth that are in my state that, like, I'm just going to endure this until I'm 18. I ain't got nowhere else to go, and I'm not trying to go back to placement. Why? They should not have that mindset. If something's wrong happening to you, you should be able to ask for help, and you get help, and you're taken to a safe place. The other aspect of it is something that, we don't like to see, but people see no way out, they make a way out. And unfortunately, that's suicide. And unfortunately, that has been a lot of our brothers and sisters' outcome because the system failed them. So, I appreciate you uplifting this with me, and sharing this. This is a conversation that I hope continues. I hope, what me and you are saying doesn't fall on deaf ears, and I know, like, I don't have the answer, and I don't like to presume that I do, but I do know, as a person who's seen both sides of the aisle, it has to be better. It has to be better. We need to do better, and granted, if our system is failing, acknowledging that it's failing instead of being like, no, we good, we all right, we just hired 10 more staff. That's just an anomaly that happened in that county. We were transitioning. We only had a one on-call worker that weekend. We like dole it down, like, it's all right, and stuff like that. Give a settlement here and there, to keep the family hush hush or what happened. That's not okay. There's no way to a better future by shrugging things under the rug. And I didn't tell you how, how there's no way, because history proves itself. Me, and if you don't mind me calling me, me and Mimi just mentioned, on here today that we come from cultures that already shrug things under the rug. So if we come into a system that isn't going to bring things to the light, how is that going to fix our society? How is that going to fix our view? Because you guys are in charge, unfortunately, because our parents, something hit or miss, whatever happened, they ain't able to be there. So now you are in charge of helping us get to 18. So if your parenting style is to teach us to keep putting stuff under the rug, how do you think we're going to do when we're 18, where we have our own family, we're teaching our own kids and what have you? That's how that generation repeats itself. Too many people not talking about things, their mental health, their physical health, having these conversations instead of, and instead of having conversations. I was speaking about, in my last podcast I recorded right before this one, that I was doing a lot of research on how minority cultures past, slavery, abuse, and all these different traumatic events in history, how they weigh and how we discipline, and how abuse derives within our cultures. And there's a lot of facts, and there's a lot of things, within, research that people have, brought up and wrote about and done studies with, that shows how slavery has a direct impact to, how discipline is done in the Black and brown community, how abuse, and neglect, has a part to play, because of the systems of oppression that people have endured,
I just gave goosebumps. I swear to God. Not even. That's so intense. That's so crazy. I'm about to cry.
It's crazy because, when you think about that you can't help but to think that how society has made what we see today? You know, what was society's hand in making what we see today in these different cultures of, abuse and neglect? A lot of neglect cases, nowadays, not all, but a lot of them are, removals because of poverty, because the family can't afford to do better, but what economic or, equally equitable um, chance do they have? It's either work or be there for your kids.
Right. Or if they were like it's so hard. Like, it's not fair, because when you're in poverty, right, and you're growing up in poverty, and so then you become an adult who was once a kid in poverty, and you probably maybe started using drugs to like have to avoid, like not have to face all of the problems in your life because of poverty. So then you're an adult now and you have a kid and you can't stop using because poverty. And then you started using because of poverty. And now you are going to lose your kid because of something that really was out of, in my opinion, out of that person's control. Because had they had the same upbringing as some white person in the, like with money and not having to worry about it, then the things would have been different for their child. And so there is no equally equitable chance. Like a long time ago, we were messed. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have a chance. And so it's crazy to use the way that you see that in the way that they built the system too. So when I'm sure we should end soon, but sorry, but the priest who started foster care through the orphan trains or whatever, white guy, comes to New York, sees a bunch of little dirty, black and brown kids running around, and decides, I'm going to send them to these white people and make them like their mini slaves, because he sent them on the orphan train to whoever bought them or whatever, right? And they were used as like literally like people who would clean up their messes, like not as, they weren't treated as foster kids as they are now, technically, right? But we're still dying. And so he just saw this as like a profit. And then when the government saw what he was doing and decided, oh, well, we'll take this over. And then that's when it became like child protective services, like all across the board. And so it's just crazy that like this white guy just came in, saw these kids and decided, this is what I'm going to do with their lives. And then I'm sure he didn't realize how big it would become. But one of the things that sticks with me most about what he had said is he had planned at one of their like fundraising events, I swear, he said, these girls and boys will be the vagrant thieves and something else of the community, and they'll be the lower class of the community. And basically saying like way before he even knew these kids, like they will be the lower class, and we'll just use them basically. So he had planned, like before me and you were born, he already knew we weren't going to be crap. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy how things started off and how they have not changed very much. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Wow. I know, some of the listeners are like, how did they get here? What have you? But
sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm a firm believer in the rant and the ramble. I believe that we share our most passionate things, most authentic things in these times. So no need to apologize. I just hope that throughout this conversation, this candid conversation, throughout your experience, what's happening, and with your work with CYC, but also what's happening, across the country, and in California, as far as abuse and neglect that shouldn't be happening, but it's happening. I hope that someone is able to have something to take away from this conversation. only have a couple more questions for you, or they're more so comments. First one is, what advice would you like to leave here today?
I would, that's a good question. A really good question. Is this advice for like, right, like just everybody for
It can
foster?
be categorically to whatever category of people you want to in general.
Okay. I guess don't be ashamed of things that have happened to you, even if you feel like they're your fault. Like, I think just try to focus on, not focus, but how do I say this? I think that one of the hardest things for me to heal and to like be able to like grow or do anything really in life was the fact that I was so ashamed of being a foster kid or of being in juvenile hall, especially, and embarrassed of that I tried to hide those things, and in turn would literally be hiding everything about myself. Like there was, I had no identity because I was trying to hide everything that made me who I am.
Mhm.
And I guess my advice would be the foster care doesn't have to define you, but don't don't pretend like it isn't a part of you. You know what I mean? Because it is, and it's up to you to make it a good thing or not a good thing. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't have said it. Um, my last question, more so comment, or statement, whichever, is what last comment would you like to, leave with us? And this is really a space for you to share if you got an album, rap song, book, whatever, how can people follow the work that you're doing, stay connected, or what have you?
Gotcha. So I'm on Instagram. Uh, well, my chapter is on Instagram. It's cyc.sd chapter. And then my personal is pretty long. Actually, no, I'll do the short one. It's Mimi Smiles. So it's MIMII dot Smiles with a Z. Um, it's actually so long, but I don't know if there's like a way to like tag me or something. You can do that. Um, yeah, I also have a blog, but I'm working on that. But it's just search up my name and I'll pop up. I promise. Pretty rare to find somebody with Mialissa as a name. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, it's truly been an honor and a privilege to have you on. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I think you're one of a few that I was able to interview who've recently aged out. So I want to thank you for your openness and willingness to share your story. One thing I would like to say is I would love to have you back as you continue to embark into your life and you get some things and you do all those great things that I know you will do, to talk about how your life has been since then. Um, Hopefully I'm still kicking it, still here,
we'll
and
stay in touch.
everything. Um, but I would love to have you back, as your life and as you continue to embark on life after foster care, life after the system. Um, so thank you for that. First and foremost, I want to, say to the audience, we touched on a lot of heavy things that could potentially be triggering, and I just ask that you take some time if if you were triggered, and even if you wasn't, because this can be very heavy. Secondary trauma is real. To take some time to get back centered. Do some mindfulness exercises. Do some self care. I don't want to, anyone to take from this, conversation or any of my episodes a negative path from this. Always want, positive outlooks and reflections to come from this, and also to those who may have been triggered and it may have sparked some things that you haven't talked about or dealt with. My email, my contact is available if you need help navigating resources or just wanting to talk with someone else that has that lived experience or what have you. I'm here and I'm available. If you would like to connect, with Mialissa, you can. She shared her info and what have you. So do so, check her out, gonna be doing great things. I'm so excited. Um, and also I want to put in a plug. What was the bill that you helped worked on? So some people, so that people can check that out because, so we may
Yeah.
have some people like me that like read and stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's crazy because I had no idea what I was doing when I first started. It's
Mhm.
called Assembly Bill AB. So it's AB 2417. And that's the Youth Bill of Rights for incarcerated youth at the county level. It's
Okay.
just basically saying you're supposed to have clean water to drink, and people have to respect that basically. Like
Mhm.
basic human rights, but for kids who are incarcerated.
Definitely, definitely. I love that. Also what I had, cold and flu season is coming back for us on the East Coast, that experience,
Mhm.
yeah. So look, that's my little joke, for the people on the West Coast. But no, cold and flu season is getting back up. COVID is still going rampant. Numbers have dwindled, but be careful. We're all a part of this big village. You never know who you may be sitting next to, on a bus or in, whatever. You don't know if the next person is immunocompromised, and by you not taking care of yourself, what you're doing to those other individuals. So please be mindful, wear your mask, hand sanitizer, wash your hands. By you taking care of yourself, you're taking care of the next person. So please do so. Lastly, I'm getting ready to end season 2. I'm hoping to continue to, raise awareness and, embark on this movement of resilient voices and beyond after I end this season. I don't know what that may truly entail or look like, in the depths, but I'm hoping to, just do some great work in that time, and I hope you guys will join me along with that. But this has been season 2, episode 25, of Resilient Voices of Beyond. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys have a good night, good morning, good whatever you listen to this. Talk to you guys soon.